My name is Rebecca Dmytryk, and I run an organization called Humane Wildlife Control and also Wildlife Emergency Services. I started many years ago, about 40 years ago, with the focus on rescue of animals, and during that time we would get, and we still do get, a lot of calls about nuisance animals, people having conflicts with wildlife. So I started a company, Humane Wildlife Control, and this was about 5 years ago, to address these wildlife issues humanely, sustainably, from mice to mountain lions, I like to say. Over the years, I've had the privilege to work with a number of wild coyotes, and from my firsthand experience, I can tell you that they are extremely docile, very, very easy to handle, oddly enough. And also from my firsthand experience, I can tell you it's much easier to change coyote behavior than it is to change human behavior. So let's get going here. Having worked with them, I don't fear them a bit just because I've had that on-hands experience. Give me any situation, 6 coyotes around me and a poodle in my arms, and it'll be okay. The main difference between like myself with no fear of coyotes whatsoever and those who maybe fear them is just knowledge and experience. So my goal, my hope tonight is to teach you about coyotes, coyote etiquette, so you will feel much more confident around coyotes, know exactly what to do when you see one, and you can teach others how to deal with them, how to protect your pets and your property, and just to feel safer overall. So let's get started by knowing our neighbor. First of all, how many dog owners do we have here? Dog lovers. Awesome. Sweet. A lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, coyote behavior, is very similar to your dog. Why? Because they are closely related. Coyotes, wolves, and your dogs belong to the same family, Canidae, or the canids. Domestic dogs belong to the order Carnivora. They eat meat. And the genus Canis, just like the coyote. Here's some video showing, let me see if I can get this to run. This is a wild coyote that found a ball on somebody's property and it's playing with it. Here's one with a tennis ball. Just having a good time like a dog. If you see the submissive pose, it's going down on its side, and it's playing with these terriers. This is a wild coyote that approached an adult, looks like a hound dog, submissive. And I don't know what this one's doing. But it's sure darn cute. All dogs, very interesting fact, all dogs evolved in North America. The dog ancestors migrated to the Old World, where eventually humans domesticated the first pet dog. And so now we have these little tidbits. Domestic dogs share the hunter instinct. They are predators. It's in their nature, just like coyotes. Dogs are predators. I want to ask you guys a question. Let's say you're visiting a friend's house who has chickens running around in the backyard, and you or your dog or your friend's dog is there with you. You've got a dog. How many of you would need to control that dog from going after the chickens? Right? Because it's in their nature to chase the birds. Okay, what if you're not allowed to leash the dog or pick it up or contain it in any way? How would you protect the chickens? Put them in a cage. Woo, right, you protect the chickens. What do you do to keep dogs away from the dinner table? If you own a dog, you're already familiar with coyotes, and if you've done any aversive training, keeping them away from your food, you're already familiar with hazing, which is a word that we use to mean chasing off an animal, chasing off a coyote. So coyotes are not that different from your dog. Think of them as your dog's genius cousin. And if you love dogs, if you respect dogs, then you have to respect the sophistication and ingeniousness of the coyote. So let's tease out some facts and fiction from, about coyotes. Coyotes are easy to identify. True or false? Well, let's see. What is this? Fox. Fantastic. It's a California gray fox. What's that? Wolf. Excellent. What's that? It's a Tamascan. It looks a lot like a wild dog. Has been mistaken for a coyote or a wolf. And what's that? It's a jackal from Africa. There's your coyote and there's your jackal, right? And so the coyotes can also be called the American jackal. They're so closely related to the golden jackal of Africa. So broadly speaking, no, it's not always easy to identify coyotes. Next, coyotes were here first. True or false? True. Coyotes are native to this area just as much as the bobcat, raccoon, scrub jay. The coyote community was here on this land before the humans built theirs. Research has confirmed since the 1900s, there's data, this is the map of data collected since the 1900s, just showing their presence in North America. So yes, the coyotes roamed this land before the humans settled in, but what did we do? What did the humans do that might have helped the coyotes gain and hold territory? We brought our dogs, food. What else did we do that made them, you know, top dog? We killed the wolves. So there are no more wolves to keep the coyotes at bay. I don't know what you'd rather have, wolves or coyotes. But we killed off the wolves, allowing the coyotes to become the top dog. And this map shows the 19 recognized subspecies of coyote. Okay, I'm going to read the answers and you tell me which is right. How much does a coyote weigh? 65 to 100 pounds. 50 to 65 pounds. 35 to 50 pounds. 20 to 35 pounds. Good, you guys are good. Yeah, they're not, our western coyote is not that big compared to the eastern coyote. So on the far left, you have the western coyote weighing between 20 to 30, 35 pounds. And then the eastern coyote is much larger. And then you see the comparison in size with the German Shepherd. So let's go over a few more things that make coyotes unique and actually manageable. They can live solitary lives or live in a family group, often called a pack. They are highly territorial. They will defend an area that they call home. Urban home ranges can be as small as 2 square miles, kind of like this city. They travel and hunt alone, typically. They are 100% monogamous. Until death do they part. Only the alpha pair breed. You'll have a pack, you'll have a family unit, and there's going to be a king and a queen. And those are the only ones that reproduce once a year. The other females in that group, the females will not come into heat. Breeding usually takes place in the winter and spring. The pups are born in spring and raised through summer months. Towards fall, right about now, is when the pups will start to disperse. They'll either stay with their pack or they'll start to disperse in fall or any time after. So this is a very lean time for anyone experiencing a higher level of, presence of coyotes. It could be that they are dispersing. Coyotes are mostly active at night. True or false? False. Biologically, they are, like your dog, crepuscular, most active at dawn and dusk. But they're extremely versatile, and they will adjust their level of activity to their environment, which means they want the most resources, the most food resources, with the fewest threats, you guys. Coyotes are carnivores. It's a bit of a trick question. Yes, they are. But that's because of their dentition, their teeth. But let's look at what they eat. They'll eat just about anything that's not too much trouble. They eat fruits, nuts, berries, grasses, seeds, insects, herptiles, and they will prey on small animals. Even in an urban setting, though, research has found that they eat mostly their natural foods, with a small percentage of human-derived foods like pet food, garbage, and very small percentage of pets, because it becomes a learned behavior. Coyotes are very beneficial to an ecosystem, even an urban one. They help control rodent populations, deer, and waterfowl. Some communities are actually embracing coyotes because they do control, for example, geese. That's a coyote with a goose egg in its mouth. So actually some cities find them good to have around. They're also very beneficial to songbirds because they control the number of smaller predatory animals and the rodents. Coyotes don't belong in the city. We hear this a lot. So I want to explain something. This has to do with all animals, including humans, are inextricably connected to food resources. Animals follow the food. In this picture, you've got the hills surrounding Los Angeles. Where would you guys go to find food? LA, right? Food's down there. That's where all the animals are going to go, the city, because it's plentiful with food resources. The urban landscape is a modern-day ecosystem, rich in food and shelter resources, accessible garbage, gardens, vegetable gardens, fruit trees, bird feeders. Bird feeders draw in the rodents, and the rodents draw in everything else. Accessible pet food. And feral cat feeding stations create a huge problem. They draw in the coyotes that are attracted by the food, and they also are attracted eventually to the cats. The equation is really simple, though. Where there's a food resource, there will be the animals to take advantage of it, like the coyotes. The long-term sustainable solution, though, is to remove the food resources, and the animals, their presence will diminish. It is that simple. Next, a coyote attacked a dog. Next, it will be a child. True or false? Really, it's false. Coyotes don't see humans as prey, ever. This is Africa with the lion, and those are the jackals. You can see one kind of behind the butt of the lion. He's ready to give him a little nip, because what the jackals do is they follow the lions around like coyotes follow people around. We're kind of like vending machines. They have learned, they're so smart, they have learned we lead to food. So you can imagine if the jackal follows the lion and kind of teases it and gives it a little nip on the tail or the butt. It's similar to some of the nips that humans have gotten from coyotes in California, where they have been actually hand feeding coyotes. Let's also put some things into perspective. Reported dog bites in the US in a 10-year period, 2005 to 2015, over 40 million bites on people by domestic dogs. Coyote bites, 2005 to 2015, maybe 60, but unfortunately they're not well documented, and many of these are from people trying to get their pets away from the coyotes. Also, I have spoken to Fish and Wildlife, and they confirm that all the bites in California have involved deliberate feeding of coyotes. Human fatalities in the US, 360 killed by domestic dogs in that time frame, and in the same time frame, 0 fatalities by coyotes. In the Chicago area, for example, there are an estimated 2,000 coyotes coexisting with 5 million people with no reported bites or attacks. And if you guys want a place to go for really great information, Urban Coyote Research Project website. So why do coyotes sometimes attack dogs? When a coyote sees a dog, they may see a threat, competition from another canid, or in some rare cases, they may see a small dog as prey. Let's talk about how that happens. When a coyote wanders into a neighborhood and nothing bad happens, he eats a squirrel or a rat, which is normal, it's good, we want him to do that. But then maybe he scores some cat food that somebody left out overnight or during the day. He got rewarded for being in that neighborhood. It's a good place to be, nothing bad happened, only reward. Then maybe the coyote catches a cat. Again, no negative repercussions, just a very big reward. And coyotes aren't evil, there's no malice in them taking these animals, they're just finding and taking things of value, caloric value to them. I didn't do my little trick, but sometimes at my presentations I forgot. I put a dollar bill on the ground and I say, it's just like the person who might have found the dollar bill. out here. It's you picked it up, it was unattended, it was unprotected, and it was of value to you. It's the same thing that the coyotes are doing. So why are the coyotes in our neighborhoods? Two contributing factors. We allow them to feel comfortable, not afraid of us, and we leave things of value to them, unattended or unprotected, and they reap the rewards. So of course they keep coming back. Here is a video of a coyote amongst students at a campus. This is a perfect time for them to haze that coyote, but they're not. They're taking selfies, they're taking video. These dogs get used to us. They will become comfortable, they have become comfortable living around us. They do not see these humans as a threat, and they should. So we're going to learn how to teach your neighborhood coyotes to fear you. So how about coyotes that you might have heard, they take dogs off 6-foot leashes? This is merely an escalation of what we were just talking about. The coyote comes into a neighborhood, it scores some food, nothing happens. It starts to test the boundaries even more, nothing bad happens. Maybe it takes a small dog from a backyard, and like, oh, that was okay, right? Nothing bad happened. And then eventually that particular coyote that has become accustomed to people, if he gets desperate enough, he may try to take a small dog off leash. But I need you to understand this is not normal behavior for a coyote. It is learned behavior that we have inadvertently taught them. So now we hear this a lot too. If we get rid of the coyotes, we'll get rid of the problem. True or false? False. If you get nothing from this talk, please remember this equation. It's super simple. 1 minus 1 equals 1. When we remove an animal from a hospitable habitat, another individual will move in. This is true for all wildlife. But with coyotes, it can actually, potentially increase the number of coyotes you have, or problem coyotes. Let's look at this. In an urban area where there's lots of food, coyotes don't have to travel very far. They don't have to hold as large of a territory. So in the San Gabriel area, you might be able to have 2 families. Let's imagine there's 2 packs. You've got the male and female alpha in the pink family with a male and female pup, and the green family with 1 female pup. So let's imagine that you start disturbing those packs. Let's say a trapper comes in and starts killing off some of the animals. So this is what will happen. With her parents killed, the green female goes into heat, because remember her estrus was suppressed because she was subordinate in the family pack. So she comes into heat and then brings in a male, joins up with him. They hold the territory. Maybe they change their territory a little bit because, oops, another animal came in. He took advantage of the missing coyote alphas, and he came in and he's holding a territory up higher. And then the young male from the pink tribe, let's say he disperses, but he still holds a small section southeast, while the queen from the pink clan finds a new mate and they have pups. So you are going to have to continue to deal with coyotes because you haven't addressed the habitat, the resources, the abundance of resources, and you're going to have new coyotes that you have to retrain. Even where people have tried to kill off the coyotes, it's not worked. The trap and kill approach is outdated, and quite frankly, I know because I'm in the pest control industry, it's a racket. It's a way for trappers to make money knowing there will be repeat business. It does not work. Let's talk about trapping coyotes. Coyotes are easy to trap, yes or no? No, they are the most difficult. Believe me, I try and catch them all the time. They are so smart. They are very, very hard to trap. They do not go into cage traps. So if you do hire a trapper, most likely they will bring out what's called a snare. And these are a danger to children, pets, and other wildlife. If the coyote is snared, it will likely be gassed. While we're on the subject of trapping, I've heard some people in other areas talk about setting traps or hiring trappers. Let me just highlight a few regulations to make you aware. And this applies to all types of traps, all human beings. It does not apply to the mouse trap, the rat trap, or the gopher trap. All traps must be marked with a number registered with the state of California. You cannot set a trap within 150 yards, that's a football field and a half, of another person's home without that landowner's written consent. Animals cannot be released on site. Animals can be released on site on your property, but they cannot be relocated, which is a good thing because they die trying to come home. These regulations are good because it makes it really tough to dispose of or get rid of animals, and we like that because it's not the solution. The best approach to managing wildlife conflicts is to manage the resources that they are dependent upon. Imagine if the community focused on reducing the amount of food and resources available to the coyotes. Maybe we could have one resident group with a transient moving through every once in a while. I'll break from my presentation just for a second and tell you that this afternoon I had to drive around the community and I saw the country club area, and it's perfect coyote habitat. I mean, no blame here, it's just perfect. And it's no wonder that you'll have coyotes coming through the wash, Rubio Wash, is it? Rubio Wash, and through the country club, and it's a perfect channel for them to come into the city, get the resources, and go out. I have to say, your city's very, very clean. I found only a few garbage cans that were overflowing with food stuff. I found only a little bit of litter. I went down to the Smith Park, it's clean. Didn't see any feral cat feeding stations, weren't obvious to me. So I think you're pretty good here, and you've just got the coyotes that are learning to come through and scoring food in maybe the country club area, but I look forward to hearing what your citizens say later. Back to the presentation, just understand no matter what you do, you can reduce the presence of the coyotes, you can train them to be respectful of you, but elimination will never be possible. You're not ever going to eliminate all the coyotes. You have to learn to be safe with their presence. They will always be here. The coyote population is out of control. We hear this a lot too. First, let's look at what controls coyote populations naturally. It's estimated that about 70% or so of the pups don't make it through their first year. So if you have 6 pups, maybe 2 will survive. While coyotes are able to learn about cars and crossing roads, many of them are struck. They are also killed off by disease. They can contract parvovirus, distemper, leptospirosis, and rabies. But rabies is very, very rare, only 8 cases in about 30 years. This is mange. It's sarcoptic mange, scabies, crabs. We're not really sure how they get it or why and how it's spreading, but it is treatable if we get them in time. Another poor coyote with mange. I just want to talk about this for a quick second. Studies have shown that rat poison is a contributing factor in bobcats and mountain lions that come down with mange. Predators are exposed when they consume rat poison that other animals have eaten. So the mice, the squirrels, the gophers, they eat poison and then they are consumed by the predators, and that gives the predators a dose. This is the famous P22 mountain lion exhibiting signs of mange. He was exposed to rodenticide. And here's a sick bobcat that we trapped, also exposed. Studies have yet to conclude if the rat poison is a leading cause in this disease in coyotes. But for example, this poor coyote with mange, horrible mange, had been exposed to 4 different types of rat poison. Maybe you've noticed the black and green boxes outside of commercial buildings. They contain poison, and there could be a number of these. I don't know. I didn't see many in your community. But this is what happens. A mouse will go in, they'll eat it, they'll come out and die out in the open. This is a mouse I found at a townhouse complex, and it contained 2.5 milligrams of bromadiolone, a very powerful anticoagulant. Anybody's cat could have picked that up and eaten it. So just an aside here, there are safe and effective things to use. Rat-X and Contrapest is a new contraceptive that is just approved in California as of about 4 weeks ago. Even with these controls, it seems that there's abundance of coyotes in our neighborhoods. Why? Again, going back to this picture, in general, a square mile of wild habitat that has very, very few resources compared with an average square mile in an average city. So coyotes that live in or near the city's edge don't need to control a huge area, which is why you might find, like I said earlier, more packs within an urban environment. Another reason for a spike in coyote presence in cities in the Southland might be the increase in feral cat colonies. Studies have proven, they have shown a relationship between high densities of coyotes and the large number of feral cat sites in that same area. This is a plate of cat food. I was called in to do an assessment and a talk in Torrance. And so I did my kind of looking around the neighborhood, and I found this plate of cat food, middle of the day, out in the bushes of a public park where children were playing nearby. And it's any wonder why the coyotes are attracted to this area, right? Got this big bowl of cat food. I don't want to get into a discussion about cats, but it's got to stop. It's not good for cats to be dumped on the streets, even if they're fed. It's not good for the cats. It's not good for the public or the wildlife. And truthfully, it's a violation of state law because we're drawing in wildlife. We're changing their natural behavior. Okay, let's look at some of the solutions. Let's get to how we can fix this for you. Very in general, you've probably heard this a million times, eliminate the food resources, eliminate shelter opportunities, and be unwelcoming. Don't let your cat or small dog be the next victim. If you need to let your cat out during the day or night, consider a couple of options for keeping them from roaming. This is a catio. It's a large enclosed shelter with a top on it. Another example, so it has a top. Nothing can get in. This is called the Perfect fence. It's commercially available. It's a little extension that goes on top of any kind of fence, and it can angle in to keep your cat inside. You can keep your cat in your own yard if you put this as an extension on the top of your fence. Your cat can't get out. Now, if you turn it the other way, or if you have two of them, you can keep your cat in, you can keep all the other animals out. Another image of a cat-proof fencing. Very, very general. This is a coyote-proof fence. If you notice at the top, it angles out at about a 45-degree angle, at about 15 inches overhang. And again, at the bottom, you also have an apron. It can be buried in the ground or just laid on top of the dirt. That is a coyote-proof fence, 4.5 feet high at least, with an extension and an apron. Another shot of a fence keeping animals out. This was we did a job in Beverly Hills to keep coyotes out of a yard, and this is the apron. You don't have to dig it in. You can just tack it down. Electric energized wires are also extremely effective. This is a picture of hot wire protecting goats and chickens. The coyote roller, it's a little expensive, but it is effective. This is just one tiny section of it. It's put atop either a wall or a fence, and as the coyote's trying to get over, it tries to grab this spinning thing, and it falls back. Keeps dogs in, keeps coyotes out. Make sure the garbage is contained properly. Use bungee cords. Don't let animals score a meal out of your garbage. Do not leave pet food or water outside at any time. Make sure you're not providing shelter. This is a place in Long Beach. Again, I was brought into the city to do an evaluation, and I talked to a lot of neighbors, and I finally honed in on this one house, and I took a look, and they actually had a den. They actually had coyotes giving birth under their house. So we found where the coyotes were feeling really comfortable. We put in a one-way door. It's a little doggy door, coyote door that lets them out, and they can't get back in. And then we finally closed it up. Do your part. Survey your yard for food and shelter options for coyotes. Very important, trim the bushes up off the ground so you take away their hides where they might sneak around and feel really comfortable. Don't give them easy access to your yard. Make your yard unwelcoming. This is a yard enforcer, and it is motion activated. It can be turned on for day and night, and this is how it works. Bye-bye. Another repeller that works pretty well to discourage lightly habituated coyotes. I don't want you to think that, oh, I'm just going to go get one of these things and the coyote that came after my pet or scored a meal at my house is going to stay away. The lightly habituated ones, the ones that are testing their boundaries, can be kept away with something like this. I've done it at this house. The heavily habituated ones, the ones that have scored meals and are coming closer, 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 they need to be hazed, and they need harder things to happen to them. When you see a coyote, don't you just stand there like this one is. This is a funny one. I have to tell you about this one. People say, oh, the coyote stared me down. He's stalking me and he's staring me down. This coyote, one ear forward, one ear back, staring, brilliant, absolute brilliance. What's he doing? He's waiting to see what I do. What direction I go in, he's going the opposite way. So what you want to do when you see a coyote, you want to haze him. We'll talk about that in just a second. You want to train him to stay away from you. Here are some hazing tools. Something called a scare stick. It's very simply a stick with something at the end of it, like mylar ribbon, anything that's going to make a noise. It could be a plastic bag that when you wave it above your head, you become this giant, noisy, scary thing. A penny can. If you're familiar with dog training, a penny can is simply an aluminum can with some pennies or little rocks inside, and it makes a rattle. And you can actually throw this at the coyote. Pots and pans, that's good. Make a lot of noise, bang them, and approach the coyote banging these pots and pans. He's going to take off. An umbrella, simply an umbrella. Pop the umbrella open, very scary. An air horn, a water gun, a rescue whistle to make noise. You've got hazing tools that can be auditory, noises, visual, being large, tactile, something hitting them or almost hitting them. Hazing should always be, in addition to removing attractants, not in place of. Neighborhood hazing programs should probably be aggressive and exaggerated at first to start training those coyotes. It'll get easier and easier if everybody does it the same way. Use a variety of tools. This gal, she took my class, she took one of my presentations, and there she is looking really super confident with her little Bichon on a walk. When to haze, when not to haze. Do not haze coyotes that are just acting normal and walking away from you in their wild habitat. This animal has been fed. It's that kind of smile on his face, and he's staring at the person in the car like he's waiting for that hamburger that comes every day. This is a very soft, gentle face. This poor animal needs to be hazed very hard to turn that behavior around. This is something that was said at one of the meetings I listened to. It was directed to, I think, the city. You've heard it time and time again, and you do nothing. I've been to so many of these meetings, and I say it back to the community, to the citizens. You've heard it time and time again, and you don't do it. We need everybody to band together, the city and the citizens, and do their part. Go through your yard, go through your neighborhood, talk to your neighbors. If somebody didn't come to this and doesn't know how to haze coyotes, teach them how to haze, get comfortable with hazing. You can turn this around, because the alternative, trying to remove the coyotes, will not work. We highly recommend the city adopt ordinances that prohibit the feeding of wildlife and leaving food out. San Bernardino has a fantastic ordinance. Issued citations for overflowing garbage cans. And data collection is super important. We really encourage citizens to report sightings. This will help us pinpoint the hot spot and may lead to what I think you're going to find is some cat feeding stations. Remember early on I said it was pretty easy to modify coyote behavior, but I found it's really a lot harder to convince humans to alter their behavior, even when they know it's going to benefit them. So I hope you all will prove me wrong. And with that, I end the presentation. Thank you.